Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 540, recorded the weekend of November 24th. I'm your host, Patrick, doing the show, the news portion of the show alone this week, being the holiday. Happy Thanksgiving to all those in the U.S. and to everywhere. Special thanks to all of our listeners, all of our contributors, everyone who makes this show possible and is a part of it. Do really appreciate that. With the holidays and with, just all the moving pieces with that, just recording the news by myself today. The screenshot of the week, Twizzles poses in the house Kenneth in our 392nd screenshot of the week. Thanks, Twiz, for sending in this week's screenshot. It is a very nice screenshot there. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOcast.com. DDOcast is hosted by CyberEars, the awesome podcast hosting network, and shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next Saturday morning. Hopefully. May have to cancel next week, just kind of depends on how things play out for me with work. But you can stay updated following us on social media pages or our website, DDOcast.com. Twitter at DDOcast is the best place. Usually I'm really good about posting things when the show is going to be there, if I'm going to be doing it live anyways. On the podcast this week, not a lot of news really to talk about, just because, again, it's a holiday week. So for San Antonio Games and for most of the U.S., it's a 3-day work week, and San Antonio usually doesn't release, they definitely don't release any updates or Lamania builds or anything like that, just because of the short week. They also don't usually put in a lot of news out on these holiday shortened weeks. The reason being for that, if you don't know, is it's just kind of it makes their lives a lot simpler because they don't want to have people really be monitoring the forums or this, that, and the other thing during the holiday. Kind of want to minimize any impact that their work might have on their holiday time. So that's kind of why we don't get a whole lot of stuff these weeks. I would expect the same to be true of between Christmas and New Year's, and the weeks kind of around those as well. But there is some important stuff to tell you guys about, because along with Thanksgiving, it's Black Friday and Cyber Monday. The Black Friday deals, it seems like they are not separating the two between Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but through this weekend, November 26th, you can get 50% off of all Ravenloft expansions in the DDO market. All of them. Whichever one you want to get, it's 50% off. It's a fantastic deal. It's the least expensive it's ever been. And also a little surprising considering it's came out not that long ago relative to the other ones. You can also get 75% off of the Deep Gnome Iconic Hero, so if you don't have that, now's a great time to do it, and 50% off of the Dragonblood Prophecy Adventure Pack. This is the one that includes the newest raid, Killing Time, but it also includes Riding the Storm Out and the quests Black and Blue and Newcomers. Also, through November 26th, Double Bonus Points is back, so if you'd like to get those as well, and usually you want to get double bonus points because Autos boxes, which are also on sale, Heroic and Epic boxes through November 26th as well. And there is a new shared storage available now for, so this is in addition to another 10 slots. Through November 26th, this newest slot is 35% off as well. It will be available at full price after this sale, the same price as the other ones, but 35% off is a great deal on that. In addition, the other sales, the normal sales, the less exciting ones, Honor Your Guild. So through November 29th, you can get 25% off of Astral Shards and Guild Renowned Elixirs. You can also get 50% off of Guild Charters and Guild Airship Beacons. There's also the freebie for the week. It's a Lasting Potion of Tumbling plus 20 times 5 with the coupon code TUMBLE, also through the 29th. So if you'd like to get that, there you go. The bonus days through November 28th, so a little longer than they normally last, plus 10% Buddy XP and plus 50% Guild Renown. Buddy XP, if you don't know, that's where you get an extra 10% for every person in your party. worth of XP. So great time to be doing some XP runs with that. Got a full party. It's an extra 50% XP. So yeehaw. And yeah, there's no actual real news this week, but we want to make sure you let you know about these great sales, really the Black Friday ones. So there you go. Community news. There is the 310th Chronicle. Originally, there was a 404 error with this, but they did fix that. Shardapalooza is coming to Arganesson on December 1st. The Chronicle comment is, how do you cook a savory turkey? Put it in a firewall. That would be the answer for a DDO. But make sure you brine the turkey first. Soak it in some really good juices and spices, so that way it doesn't dry out in the firewall. It just gets cooked. You want a good moist turkey when you're done with it. The guild for the week. Yeah. So the guild for the week is Cavalieri di Draghi. I think that's really how I pronounce it. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can. The reason I'm not going to do that is because it appears to be. I believe it's in Italian. It's definitely not in English, and I can't read it. But what I can tell you is the guild is level 178, and people who you can contact in game are Fedi, Anakan, Don Abondio. So you can look for those people, or you can just look at the Chronicle yourself. We'll link to that in the show notes. If you speak Italian, you'll have a much better chance of looking at this than I will. Doesn't give me a whole lot to go off of there. Fan site news for the week. Mickey's Raids had their 99th week, almost 100. We got a shout out for our episode last week on Past Life Prioritization Part 1. The next part will be after this news portion. We'll kind of continue that discussion. The Barbarians of the Wasteland, Return of the House to the House of Grouse, had a blog post about barbarians in the Wasteland. Bachelor Gore played DDO. Brighter Days Ahead had a snowstorm. Brock and Friends had their new beginnings. Shardapalooza was on Wayfinder. D&D Night had the Sunless Citadel. I believe that is Even Notes campaign. First time she's doing that. And Free DO had episode 8 with Cycle Blonde. You can also check out DDO Players News. Episode 201 came out this week. The D&D Night this week will be, I believe, a Thanksgiving special adventure hosted by Cherry. I honestly don't know what it's going to be or what's going to happen, but there you go. We have one off. DDOCast. There will be DDOCast this Tuesday. I will not be there. The rest of the group will be streaming without me. And then we are basically going to be taking a break until after the new year, just with people traveling. And Christmas and New Year's this year fall on Tuesday, which is our normal playtime. So it just really doesn't work for us to do that. So there you go. See, also, I want to let people know, Fantasy Grounds, which is a sponsor of D&D Night on DDO Stream, they're having sales this week. So if you're interested in buying Fantasy Grounds, their outright buy packages, you can either subscribe to their service monthly, or you can just buy it outright and not have to pay the monthly subscription. That's on sale. A bunch of the D&D books are on sale. I think almost everything is on sale this week. So you can go to fantasygrounds.com. Good time to get some of that stuff if you're interested in doing that. Lightning post. We do have a little bit of lightning posts. People were writing in about our discussion last week, which was focusing on past lives and how to kind of think about approaching them again from a bigger picture. We're not talking about the differences between the heroic ones, but really just the difference between heroic and iconic and racial and epic, the rest of that will be on this back half of this one. Fuzzy Duck wrote in, really looking forward to Eldritch Knight. Do love having a character that can mix up spells and melee combat. For current favorite is a melee druid that just ignores animal forms completely. just enough in Defender for heavy armor proficiency to wear Dragon Plate. It runs in Fire Elemental form with Body of the Sun, making the most of the immunity breaker from Season's Herald, plus a load of Falconry. Yeah, that sounds like a fun build. Similar to what Fennecis is running on our D&D or DDOCast plan group. It says it's going to be interesting to see what races people go for with Eldritch Knight. Admittedly, Warforged and Bladeforged has a self-healing through repairs, but humans can get the multiple stat boosts while action boosts are active, and combined with having both spell power and melee power at once too, that's pretty significant. Gnomes with their color spray are already strong intelligence-based builds too. As usual, it seems that wizards will be more versatile, whereas sorcerers need to choose whether to focus more on casting versus fighting due to having less feats. Yeah, they did mention that sorcerer did perform surprisingly well, so we'll be looking forward to how that kind of pans out. Otto's Irresistible Dance is going to be an absolute must-have for any Eldritch Knight. I would say it's probably a must-have for any caster, just because it has no save. So you wouldn't be surprised if the Knight Controller enhancement was put together with that rather strongly in mind. It says the addition of new level 1 damage spells is soon to be adaptations of the level 0 cantrips from newer editions. Yes, that's kind of what they actually said that they're going after. More level 9 spells and adding a bit more kick to the others in between is pretty tasty too. It is a shame that they haven't removed the hit dice caps from Trap the Soul. It might come with the Pale Master Pass as well, but see. For Iconic Past Life, Shader Kai is his favorite for the emergency incorporality at 50% health. Extra defense is nice, and it lets you pass through enemies too. Great if you get stuck. Yeah, that's a really good one. I like that one too. Important to note, never use an Iconic for those I don't like playing this class as much. Just get through it live since you're committed to playing it through level 30. Good point. Do those on a purely heroic life where you can go for a 10-10 build or similar. In terms of racial past life, it says go for Gnome first if you can, since an extra point of intelligence means more skill points on every subsequent life, plus better spellcasting DCs for a couple of them too. Good point. Anonymous wrote in again, so the optimal past lives depending on your playstyle or what you're planning to do as your framework to work past class you don't want to play. First things first, get a purple Dragon Knight past life. That's remove fear and movement speed clicky. Unquestionably a must-have on any class. That's a very good one. Yes, I agree. Then, depending on your playstyle, for a caster, he recommends getting Wizard Past Life. I also agree. It's +1 to all DCs. And if you go 3 times, you get your spell penetration. Again, very handy. But for Shirati, it's not that important. Next is Cleric and Sorcerer for extra Evocation and Conjuration. Evocation's a funny one. I actually find that DCs aren't that important for Evocation. Yeah, I know some things can save and not take damage. Sure, but there's also a bunch of spells that are evocation that don't have DCs and doing damage. And usually, evocation, I don't know. I don't find that it's as big of a deal to go crazy with the DCs. So, but conjuration can certainly be helpful. I believe web is a conjuration spell. So, and they also says bard if you play in a party without one and have feats to back it up and are playing a wizard. Yeah, I don't find I ever have enough feats to take the Bard Past Life feat, to be honest. This is for Epic Past Lives, go for Energy Criticals. Yeah, that's a good one. For range, definitely take Ranger. +2 damage is great. Then he recommends Paladin for the +3 to damage clicky. You have to take the active feat for that. And again, I think you can get better bang for your buck with the feats there. But the healing app is definitely nice. That's true for anybody, really. Double shot feat is okay, not great. I actually kind of like Colors of the Queen a little bit better than double shot, personally. Then enchant weapon is also good. And then for utility, he says Artificer is really nice for the +1 to all trapping skills. Barbarian is nice for hit points. For melee, he goes for Paladin, Barbarian, and Monk. An enchant weapon for epic. He doesn't like melee much. Lag spikes kill you too fast. Lag spikes kill everybody too fast, to be honest. Melee just are usually more, as Severlin put it, things go bad and the melee die. He does say, that said, past lives are pretty meaningless. It's not like that +6 or 9 or so to damage you get from them does anything for the total amount of hits you need to take an enemy down in most cases. Save for energy criticals. Those are really good to have. Yeah, I mean, we started talking about +9 to damage. That's a lot of damage. But yeah, it's a lot of investment for not a lot of payoff, I would say. And then James wrote in, he's saying he's so happy to listen to our initial episode on past lives. He's never reincarnated and always makes new alts because he plays very casually, and because the reincarnation concept just seemed and unapproachably complex. He did ask, it went over his head, especially comments about out of left field at the end of there about karma. Karma. The short version of this is epic destinies are divided into spheres. So there's a martial sphere, a primal sphere, arcane sphere, and a divine sphere. As you are leveling up in any of, if you're in epics and you're leveling up, you get XP from a quest or from anything that you get XP from. That will apply to in up to 3 different places. The first is for your epic levels, so that'll get you from 1 to 30. The second place it can apply is to your epic destiny, whichever one is active. If it's not capped out, you'll apply to that until it's capped out. If it's capped out, you can change your destiny. Eventually, they'll all be capped out. It's only 1.9 million to XP to level up a destiny, and you need something like 8.2, I think, to hit level 30. So you can hit a bunch of those pretty quickly. The third place that XP can apply is to your destiny sphere karma. So if you're in any of the martial destinies, any XP you get will also be applied to a third place, your martial sphere karma. Your destiny karma maxes out at 6 million, or actually might be 6.6 million. Again, it's less than you need to go from 1 to 30. And then you can, if you switch to a different destiny or different sphere, you'll apply XP to that karma. You can look at this in the map view of your Epic Destiny page. You need to have the Epic Destiny or the Karma Destiny maxed out in the sphere to use an Epic Reincarnation. So that's what we're talking about with Karma. That's a brief idea of how it works. Hopefully that is helpful. Then he went on to say, perhaps the most basic question he still felt left to answer at the end of the episode were, there were a few of them. I'll try to answer them best I can, but not too long either. How do you know what the benefit is of any given heroic past life? I would also say iconic or epic or any of the things. The easiest way is to go to the wiki. That's the best place to find DDOWiki.com. Best place to get this information. You can look at her feats, and then there's past life feats, and it'll kind of give you what they all are. It will also give you a lot of information about which classes supersede the other ones, if in the case of a tie, kind of that whole thing. You can find this information in game, the same place that you actually go through the process. You need a Heart of Wood for whichever one you're doing. That the Heart of Wood you need is always about what you currently are and what you're doing. So if you're doing a heroic true reincarnation, you need a heroic true Heart of Wood. If you're doing a racial reincarnation, you need a Heart of Blood. And they all say in their description what they're for. If you're an iconic character currently, you need to use an iconic heart. You do not use an iconic heart if you want to become an iconic character. It's what you currently are. Or if you want to do an epic reincarnation, you need an epic Heart of Wood. There's a bunch of different ways you can get those. You can get them from the store. You can get them in game. The true reincarnation Heart of Wood and the Heart of Blood you can get with tokens of the 12. Epic and iconic you can get with heart teas and combinations of valor. That's where you get those in game. But you can also buy them in the store. To start the process, you go to the Hall of Heroes. There's a reincarnation grove. You go in there. There's a little archon. Looks like a glowing orb. You talk to him. He will kind of walk you through the steps of what you need. Before you reincarnate, he will also tell you what you're getting out of this. Now, some of this will be, it just kind of tells you what generally you're going to get, but it doesn't tell you that you've already gotten this feat several times. To figure out what we kind of talked about this, I'm pretty sure, but if you open up your feats page in your character sheet, you can go to, there's a past life tab, and you can look at what you already have. All the past lives stack up to 3 times. If it says you've already acquired it 3 times, pick something else because you're not going to get anything out of it. If you can. So that's how you can find the information in game. The problem is you basically have to be going through that process to figure it out. So DDO Wiki is by far the best place to figure this out. Let's see. The next question: which past life benefits do you get if you multi-class? Whatever the highest level class you have. So if you have 8 levels of monk, 6 levels of fighter, and 6 levels of druid, then you would get a fighter past life because you have the most levels in that. In the case of a tie, it's a little bit more complicated. Again, I would direct you to DDO Wiki just because it outlines that really well. But the short version is for the classes that were around when reincarnation started, it's alphabetical, and then it's the classes that were added in succession after that. So it's a little weird. The easiest way to do it, if you know you want to pass life for a certain class, make sure you have the most levels in that class. Period. Don't ignore tie. Don't have any ties, and you'll be fine. Do you have to play the same race? No. Are there any other restrictions on the reincarnated character? No, there are not. It's you get to make a new character. You can be whatever you want. The only restrictions are what you are currently. So if you are currently an iconic, you have to use an iconic True Heart of Wood. You have to be level 30. If you are not iconic, you need to use either a True Heart of Wood or True Heart of Blood to do racial or normal reincarnation or true reincarnation. It's about what you are. That's where the restrictions are. Do you begin again in Korthos? Unless you do an iconic, yes, you start at level 1. If you become an iconic class, you start at level 15, just like they normally do. Can you then enter dungeons at harder difficulties? Yes. So the first time you reincarnate on a character, you will automatically be able to open any quest on hard, even if you don't normally have that. The next time, the second and subsequent time, so your third and subsequent lives, you can open a quest on elite. What equipment do you start with? You start with everything you still had. It goes into what's called a true reincarnation cache. Think of it as like a bank slot that you can't put anything in. You can only take stuff out. You have to empty that entirely before you can do another true reincarnation. But you don't lose any gear. But otherwise, you start with what you would start otherwise. You get starter gear or iconic gear, whatever that is. So there you go. Hopefully that answers all your questions, and I'm sure other people had some similar questions about that. Wanted to make sure we got that out there. All right, so that will wrap up the news portion of this show. So thanks for everyone for listening. Again, thank you for being a part of the show, and a special thanks to all of those who contribute to DDOCast and to Standing Stone Games and Wizards of the Coast. Again, thank you to them for making DDO, and to Cyberbears for hosting the podcast. Again, big thank you to them. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOCast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage, or you Twitch DDO and you'd like to be featured on our website, you can email me, ddocast@gmail.com. You can hit us up at ddocast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be a part of the show, we have a comment in this episode. Hey, there's a question I'd like to hear us answer, just like we just had a moment ago. Email me, leave a comment. I love trying to get the information out there for people that are kind of trying to figure some of this stuff out. We want to help you as much as we can. If there's a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you just want to say hi, leave a comment, email us, ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media. Again, at DDOCast on Twitter is the best place, but we also have a Facebook page if you prefer that. So next, we have a segment. This is Greetings from Korthos with Grandern.
Greetings from Korthos. Hello again. Real life is always off and on busy for me, and recently work has been busy indeed, but for this, the 7th installment of the series, being about halfway through, will include a quick recap of the first half and then get into the meat of the data I have collected from there. We'll start off with what I've been up to, and during the brief respite from non-game activities, I have been running the night revels when possible. The last weekend of the event has snuck up, so I'll give a look-back review. I liked the addition of the new quests and the return of the Spectral Dragon. Although the quest design for Eternity Unleashed is original, the hints of the old Summoning Chamber raid quest from Maybar days have a reminiscent feel. One neat thing about the game is the slightly different atmosphere that is created in each quest and chain. With just an image, as you can see in the Where Am I conversation thread on the DDO forums, people recognize where the shot was taken thanks to, in part, to that atmosphere. In a similar way, when you enter a quest and have run it a few times, you just kind of know your way through the quest and almost subconsciously can navigate your way through. You just know the way, the path and environment input into your mind to a certain extent. Of course, this will vary from person to person, and there are some quests I still don't have the confidence to lead, such as the Pit. I love the challenge, but still haven't sat down and untangled that mess for myself. Thank you very much, Torque. Beyond that, I also had a chance to run the new raid, Killing Time, the other weekend. I think 9 or 10 out of the 12 of us had not run it before, and it's always fun with new quests to be at that point where no one has run the quest yet. Stitches of the Matrix and Nermaso of Sokoi Licht seem to know the run better than others, and either remain sufficiently coy about the course so as not to give things away. Otherwise, they were mostly derelict of leadership duties and left us all out to dry with little consideration for guidance or our general welfare. It was one or the other, I'm not too sure. I did appreciate the continuation and convergence of existing storylines, revisits to nostalgic locations that had been tweaked sufficiently, and there were plenty of dragons. Overall, a good addition to the raid repertoire. Remember, 2 years ago, there just weren't many endgame raids at all. I do, however, look forward to what's ahead with the endgame raid category system to spruce up more neglected raids. The rest of this edition will be dedicated to the new player data I collected when actively conducting the Korthos Greeter project. Up until now in the series, I've discussed reasons behind starting the Korthos Greeter, what you can do, and what other people on Orion are doing to help new players. From there, I went into detail on making a greeting character, and the last edition, I talked about guild recruiting techniques. Today, I will start digging into some of the data I collected and present a compilation of all questions asked in Korthos chat by players new to the game. Now, this will be kind of a data dump, so I will try to add the full list of questions asked to the Korthos Greeter thread on the DDO forums and split this analysis into 2 sections. I totaled 207 questions from over about a 2-month period from last year when Orion was the default server. I would keep the chat open and go through things when I came back from work or in the morning. If I had time and I was around, I would try to help people out, as always, but during this period I was actively tabulating the data. I'll start with outlier questions first, and in the next edition I will move to the more commonly asked questions. Now, let's pause for a moment, and let me ask you, what do you think the most commonly asked question was? Note that down. Maybe add that to the Korthos Greeter thread on the DDO forums if you get a chance. It would be very interesting to see your ideas. So, we will start off with the individual questions first. The first question was about emotes besides the laugh. This would be easily answered with a Google search for DDO emotes. Another question was about how to finish out from a quest, likely from someone inside a quest. Slightly concerning, but there was only one question like that which I saw during that time period. Next, we have a question on how to show the character's cloak. Recently, a solution to this has been added to the game, and these days DDO is flush with cloaks. From there, I noted individual questions on how to cast spells from a scroll from the hotbar, the possibilities of changing gender, and if someone could open a quest on Elite. I would imagine that this person was not completely new to the game, as this is a fairly common question we see in chat or LFMs. The next question was slightly concerning. It was from someone who didn't know how to swim or had forgotten perhaps since the tutorial. Other experiences I had, which were not added to the 207 questions here, but I do remember, is actually walking another person through the swimming process. I had to think about it for a second. You don't often talk someone through the mechanics of swimming in-game. Next up are slightly more asked questions from 2 to 5 times out of the total of 207. 2 people asked what gems were used for. Well, sell them for money like you do in D&D. A couple asked about how to show pets, and 2 more asked about the crafting system. Crafting. Don't get me started with crafting. 3 questions were asked about how to multiclass, and these came up a few times outside of the data collection period. Talk to the right trainer. Another interesting question was, how good is this game? Well, look at us. I'd say it's pretty good. From there, rather concerning, 5 people asked how to leave a party. Now, this can be kind of tricky to get used to if you think about it. You can't leave a group in a quest. You have to leave a quest first to leave a group, or all members must leave the quest and reform the group to remove someone else from a group who is still in a quest. There is no tutorial for this in-game. It is left up to player-to-player interaction, or everyone leaving your group, which can be pretty cold when it happens. Now we move to more commonly asked questions. Some of these were also asked 5 times and up to 8 times. Related to the scroll casting question previously, there were 5 questions specifically about hotbars. How do I set up my hotbars? How do I add my skeletal knight to my hotbar? A pretty mechanical part of the game, which even Patrick has mentioned for the longest period. He didn't know how to create multiple hotbars. There is nothing obvious in-game to help you there. 5 people asked about guilds, any recruiting, make a guild with me, what's the best way to find a guild. This is a more common question in Korthos, and I would regularly direct players to Harbor for that. Next up is, where are the trainers? This one is kind of concerning. It would be nice if there was some way to touch base with your trainer right after leaving the tutorial, so people know who they should be talking to and the mechanics of leveling and everything else the trainers have to offer. At a total of 6 requests was in-quest specifics. Help with the locked gates, with the chest behind it in the redemption quest. What is up with the puzzle in stopping the Sahuagin? These questions are hard to answer with a tutorial and are best left to interplayer support. The best answer being, check the wiki. A question that you may find surprising was people asking if players needed any help. I saw 7 of those during the data collection period, and like I mentioned in one of the previous editions, a number of people were out there doing what they were able to for new players in their own way. I will finish today with a question that was asked 8 times and was very hard to answer, that would often go like this. Why can't I see my friend? Where are you? I can't see my girlfriend. How do I invite my friend to my group? Well, you might have guessed it. It's the dreaded sunny, snowy Korthos question, which came up several times. I have discussed this in previously as well. I recall physically guiding people to Valeria, telling them to leave the snowy instance, ignoring the warning in big red text, and return to the sunny instance to be reunited with their companion. So, those are the rare to uncommon questions that were asked in chat over a 2-month period last year in Korthos. In Greetings from Korthos number 8, I will move on to the more commonly asked questions and give a little more analysis. Until that time, take care.
Welcome back. We're talking about past life prioritization. This is part 2 of our discussion. So we're talking big picture, talking about the different types of reincarnation today. With me, we have Voodu. Welcome back.
Thank you. Hey, everyone.
I did this wrong last time because apparently I dropped an N. It's Nimvind. I think that's correct, right?
Yes, it stands for Nim and then Vindication. So Nim.
All right. And then BandVP is also back.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
So we're talking about past life prioritization. So what do we mean by that? So we're kind of trying to give a roadmap for getting your past lives. So whether that means you've got some already or you're starting from scratch, we're going to try to help. We're not going to give you a specific roadmap because we'd have to give one for everyone, right? And that's just not plausible. Because there's too many build types to kind of just give one roadmap. So what we're kind of doing here is we're going to give you some ideas on what this looks like in big picture. What's out there? What can you kind of think about in terms of getting that? And that's kind of the big picture. Anything you guys want to say before we kind of dive back into it?
Just remember to have fun while you're getting your past lives. Don't treat it like a chore. If this game becomes unfun or starts feeling like a job, it's going to get ruined. So have fun.
And again, there's a lot of past lives, right? So don't get overwhelmed. We're gonna talk about racial and epic today, which I think we can all kind of agree that more of the power and available from reincarnation is in these two places. But you don't need a lot of these to be successful. You don't really need any of these to be successful. Now, I would say that you'd probably enjoy the game a little more if you got at least a few, right? There's a lot of things that are here that are available to really kind of make bang for your buck, and depending on what you're doing. But you don't need to have a bunch of these to run with the big boys per se. Now, as we said before, if you're trying to run Reaper 10 killing time, you're probably just going to die anyway, so don't worry about it. But certainly as you push what you're trying to do and the difficulty level you're trying to do it at, these will become really helpful. But it's not a big. Don't feel like you are less than or anything like that because you don't have a bunch of lives. Your play skill and your gearing and your build is going to be much more of your power. We're talking about maybe 10% available power in the game, maybe for some builds. So, okay, let's talk about racial past lives. So there's 11 races. Elf and Wood Elf are the same race. They're not considered different races. You can get 3 past lives per. This one gets interesting because all of the other types of reincarnation, there's a passive bonus that's the same for each of them, each tier, and sometimes there's kind of an active bonus, but it doesn't. They're all kind of the same, right? They stack on top of each other. So the first time you get something, you get a bonus. The second time you get it, it makes that bonus better. The third time you get it, the bonus makes the bonus better in the same increment, right? Racials are very different. The first tier of a racial past life, you get a +1 to skill, a random a skill. Not fantastic, let's be honest. The +1 to UMD from Gnome is kind of nice, but you're not. The first past life here, not going to get you a whole lot. The second tier gives you a bonus to a stat. This is more meaningful. This is where you start to see some of that power. Now, it's important to note that this bonus does not unlock feats. It's also not available when you're building your character. So it doesn't count for feats or anything like that. The third tier, and this is for all of them, is +1 racial action point. So when you look at your enhancement trees, your racial tree, you get an additional action point to spend in that tree. Now, obviously, for some races, this is fantastic and amazing. For some races, Drow, I'm looking at you. This is not so useful. But I mean, you can still spend them in the tree, right? So, all racial trees are not created equal. That's what I'm kind of poking at here. I believe there is, other than strength, you can get +2 for all the stats. You can only get +1 from strength. There is no guarantee. It's highly unlikely, since Tiefling is the next race coming, that you're going to get a +1 to strength from Tiefling. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. There is also a racial completionist feat, which I believe is the same. It's +2 to stats and +2 to skills. I don't have these. I'm not this cool, so I don't have completionist feats. However, it's important to note that unlike the class completionist, you get this one for free. You do not have to spend a feat on it. There you go.
That's giant.
It's a big difference.
Big prize.
Big difference.
May I please quickly butt in, if that's okay?
Yes, go for it.
So with your heroic pass lives, that's 14 playable classes times by 3 is 42, and you get your completionist feat, which you have to give up one of your feat slots.
You only have to do 14. You only have to do 14, right? You only have to do each class once, so it's 14.
Sorry, but if you just go like 3 times, say if you want to go 3 times,
yes,
I think a lot of players nowadays have paused the heroic one and gone towards the racials, just because, as Patrick said, it's passive, as well as just getting yourself +4, which is a massive difference compared to the heroic one. So if you're planning to go 3 times, like 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, I personally suggest as a player to go racials first, just because, as I said, they're all passive.
Yeah. I think the thing with racial is you're probably going to want to get to the third one, right? You're probably going to want to do all 3, because the power does not, it's not a linear power curve, right? It's a very it accelerates as you get farther, right? Like +1 to a skill. This is not earth-shattering. This is not going to change your game at all. I don't even if with the +1 to UMD, this is not going to functionally change your character that much. It's not going to make or break your character. But getting, like we talk about, you get the +2 to all your stats from the racial from completionist, +2 to all the skills. Another +2 for most of the stats, +3 or +1 for strength, and 11 action points to spend in your racial tree. That's a big difference in your character.
I think, like, when it comes down to it, because like it stacks with the racial complete, so like those +1 skills end up being +3 to those certain skills.
Sure.
Like if you after the long haul, and then you get the +2 to most stats except strength. So in the end, it's +3 to strength, +4 to all the other stats until Tiefling comes out, which is probably going to be like +5 to charisma.
Probably charisma or intelligence would be the likely ones, I would think.
Yeah, so like when it comes down to it, like if you want to burn a feat, that's +6 to most of your stats, or +5 to strength, and +4 to most skills, except for skills you get racial bonus to. And the action points are phenomenal. I can't tell you how happy I am to just step on the grotto after a life and just be like, oh, spend my oh, look at what I got at level 1.
So Mesmerita in chat said that they started with 2 of each so that they get that stat point, and then went back and got the racial action point from the 3rd stack of each past life. But I was going to recommend going like choose a race, do all 3, because unless you're running if you're doing racials, you're running a variety of races, and a lot of the trees have great stuff to be had, and that extra action point is pretty huge, and they really start stacking up. You get to your 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th race, and suddenly you're starting at level 1 with 5, 6, 7, 8 action points that you can spend in your tree.
Yep.
That's pretty awesome.
It is.
And if you don't know where to start, Dwarf and Warforged lives are great because your second tier gives you Constitution, and that's great for everybody. And then if you know what your primary build is going to be, then you want to go for your prime requisite, your main stat. Maybe that's a casting stat if you're a caster, or if you're a melee, maybe it's strength or whatever.
I agree with Voodoo too, because the whole goal, and for me at least, and the goal will be different for a lot of people, is racial completionists, and you have to get all 3 in each race to get racial completion.
Yeah, it's just one of each.
Really?
Yeah.
No, it's all 3. You got to do all 3 of each to get racial completionist.
Yeah.
33 total.
You guys do all of them?
33 to get racial completionist. That's
thought
why
it
it's
was-
auto
Yeah.
granted.
Okay. I thought it was one each.
No,
I wish.
that'd be a no-brainer to do
Yeah.
that right away. Then, if that was the case, it's definitely all 33 to get racial completionist.
Oof.
It's a big grind, but it's a big prize.
I'm gonna go into my my I want to do this chart later and change that. Yeah, it is a big grind. And again, let's temper this by saying you do not need to get this to be successful in this game. This is not a requirement. It certainly makes some builds a little easier to figure out, so that'll help a lot. But don't feel like you need to come out and do 33 past lives, soon to be 36 when we get Tiefling, in order to be successful at this game. We do not want to give you that message. Now, having said that, I think the biggest place that you're gonna get the power for this is that action point. So I'm kind of in favor of, now that I know that you can't just do each one once and then get the completionist feat. You got to, getting the action point is probably where you're gonna get more bang for your buck. And you can look at your, build your character out and see how many points am I spending in the racial tree, and that can inform you how helpful this will be for you. I know for my monk, I'm spending 7 points into my racial tree, and I look at the rest of where I'm also spending points, and man, I could really use those 7 points somewhere else. So getting 7 racial action points is totally worth it for me. Now, having said that, I also have my bard is spending 1 point in my racial tree, and the only reason that point is there is because he's got a racial action point tome. So, and I like his race, but his racial tree is not that fantastic. So, spending time getting racial action points for that kind of a build, it's probably not really worth it, right? So that's something you can consider here when you're talking about your racial trees. Especially if you're playing multiple characters like me, what are you kind of looking for in terms of how much time you want to spend here? So, and even then, like, I've got a couple characters that my fighter's got like 3 racial action points. It's great. It's fantastic. I don't really plan on getting too many more on him because I could find places to spend those extra points, but I'm not really spending a lot of points on my racial tree anyways. So that can help temper how much you feel like you want to get out of here. So.
Is this okay if I could? Oops, sorry, after you.
I love racials. What's great about racials is that you get to play whatever build you want. And, most builds aren't heavily dependent on racial trees. So, whatever build you like playing, you can just keep doing that build over and over if you like.
Yeah, when you're in heroic lives, you gotta like make sure you have that class as your primary class. So you have to figure out a build that uses that class, which can be kind of tricky.
On the opposite side of the coin, I do it differently, where I look at the racial tree and I have to figure what class can actually, because I'm almost racial completionist. So I'm like, ooh, this race would make a really good like drought, like good shuriken thrower, freaking elf, good arcane archer builds that are not ranger. And so I like to switch it up so I don't get too bored of a certain class. You know what I'm saying?
It's definitely a tactic that I try to. I temper my my reincarnation with 2 kind of thoughts. One, I don't like doing. I'm not a huge fan of reincarnation, and I get caught in the grind, and it becomes not fun. So how do I make it one, as painless as possible. So what build am I really good at, and can I cruise through some of this stuff? But how can I change the build to make it more interesting for the next iteration, right? Kind of always the problems I'm having.
I don't know if we said this, but just in case there are folks listening that are new to racials or racial reincarnating, this is something you can do at level 20,
Right.
and make sure that you choose the correct heart to reincarnate with. It's
Yes.
the true heart of blood, not heart of wood. It's heart of blood for racial.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of times I've made that mistake. Oh,
Exactly. That's why it's worth emphasizing, because so many people have made the mistake.
I made it once, never again. That was
Yep.
so painful.
All right, so there's racial. Let's talk. We'll kind of talk about epics, and then we'll kind of put a whole nice little bow on this kind of discussion here. So the epic past lives, these are based on the destiny spheres. So there's 12 epic past lives. One, they sort of line up with the different destinies. But not quite, right? So there's each sphere has 3 different epic past life feats that you can take. This gets really convoluted. This is hard to explain a little bit. So each destiny has kind of a feat that's associated with it, and you can kind of look at kind of the different ones and kind of see how they're so like the arcane sphere, for example. Energy criticals kind of lines up with Draconic Incarnation. Enchant Weapon kind of lines up with the Fate Singer, and Arcane Alacrity kind of lines up with Magister. Now, having said that, their passive bonus is all the same. They all do the same bonus for passive there. The way this works is at level 30, you spend your Karma XP from your Destiny. If you need to know what that is, open up the map of the destinies that shows you all of them in kind of that map view for how they interact and how you can go from one to the next. It's really complicated, I know. But there's a number in the middle of that, and that gives you your karma. You need 6 million, right? Karma in that.
Yep.
And you pick a sphere to spend your karma from, and then you get to pick which of the 3 feats you want. Each of the 3 feats stacks 3 times. Like Iconic, there's a passive bonus, and then there's a past life stance. You can have You can only have one of these past life stances from each sphere active at a time. So you cannot have energy criticals and enchant weapon active at the same time. But you can have energy critical and power over life and death from the divine sphere active at the same time, because they're different spheres. Hopefully everyone's following me so far. Additionally, you get I think it's every 3 past lives, epic past lives, you get 1 fate point. You can get more fate points this way. And if you have 3 epic past lives from each sphere, doesn't matter which feat, you can do 1 of each if you wanted to. Then you get Epic Completionist, and what that does is it gives you an extra feat slot, or extra fate slot. Hopefully that all made sense. So there you go. So let's talk about.
may I please?
Yeah, go for it.
May I please just quickly butt in and say that the Epic Completionist is passive.
Yes,
So
thank you.
Yeah, you don't need to give up a feat slot. It's automatically given to you.
Mm-hmm. It's also worth noting that you do not need to. So an epic past life, what it does, it takes you from level 30 down to level 20. If you're an iconic, that means you can't iconic reincarnate anymore. If you are not an iconic class, it now means that you could take either you can go right into a heroic or racial reincarnation as well. You still have to level up to 20, and then you can do that. But that's an option, and a really good one. We'll talk about that. So there you go. So let's talk about epic past lives. How do you guys approach the epic past lives?
Well, Epic Completionist is giant. Getting that extra twist of fate is huge. And so I would highly recommend making that a priority. And kind of like with the iconics, you really want to start with triple stacking whatever stance you think you'd like to run with from that sphere. You get to run with one stance from each sphere active. You get the passive automatically, but you can only run one active stance per sphere. So find a stance you like in each sphere and get triple stack each one of those. You triple stack a stance from each sphere, that gives you epic completionist. So I would definitely make that your priority. 3 from each, epic completionist.
My interest in epic past lives isn't really for epic completionists, but it should be a priority. You should find this one stance from each tree or karma or whatever you want to call it, and max triple stack that stance. It makes no sense to get one of each stance because you only can have one active. So get one of each flavor out of the way, and then get that extra slot. But my main interest is actually the passive stacking bonuses, that the huge PRR and HP and AC and all that. I'm not huge into the arcane thing, but it has its place, I guess, right? But that's a huge bonus to have at the get-go, like 30 this and 30 that, like and I know I just got done saying in the last segment that or thing that 30 is not make or break, but 30 like AC, PRR,
At level
HP,
1.
that's huge. Yeah, it's huge. Without wasting a feat too. So
Yeah.
it's just like mine as well.
Yeah, so there's just kind of give it. You can use all these epic these past life stances in heroics, so they do get a lot of bang for your buck. And I would say when you're looking at, if you take just one generic past life, a heroic versus an iconic versus a racial versus an epic, you are going to get, I think, the biggest power bump per feat for past life out of epic. Now I'm kind of doing there too. Like I will grant you that the third racial past life is the most powerful of getting that extra action point for most builds. But you have to temper that. Like for 3 feats for racial, you get a skill point, a stat point, or +1 to stat, and then your extra action point. If you kind of even all of that out, I think you're still getting more per feat out of epic. Personally, that's kind of where I land on that. So this is, I think, where you're gonna get the most power increase for your character. The nice thing is you don't have to like go all the way down to start over. This is not it's kind of an aside to the discussion we're talking about, but I think leveling in epics is a lot easier than it is in heroics. Partly because you can run with a lot more people. They're just kind of the way those mechanics work. So that's kind of a nice thing to be aware of there.
I think you already touched on this, but I would definitely recommend coupling your epic lives and either your heroic or your racials. In other words, go to 30 every time. Don't just, some people just, they have this idea, I'm going to knock out all my heroics, or I'm going to knock out all my racials, and then I'll do my epics. But if you go to 30 every time, getting one epic past life and then one racial or heroic, then you're going to benefit from that first time XP that's available from that trek from 20 to 30. And like someone is saying in chat, maybe even get a second epic past life during that life by epic reincarnating back to 20 and go back to 30 again. It just depends on how much first time XP you think you have available. But if you get all of your heroics and racials out of the way first, and then you think, okay, then I'm going to do all my epics all at once, every time you go through that epic life, there's going to be less and less first time XP available, making that grind from 20 to 30 that much more difficult.
Yep. I think about it this way, right?
Yeah.
There's 12 epic past lives available. You can do 3 of them, each of them 3 times, right? But there's 11 races and 14 classes. If you did 1 to 30 and went back 1 to 30, you would finish your epics before you finish the heroics and the racials. At which point, then you can go back to doing 1 to 20, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I feel like because I made the mistake that Voodoo said, and I did my heroic completions without touching epic past lives until afterwards, and so now when I started racials, I was like, I might as well, right? Go to
Mhm.
30. It doesn't take much, and you just do it, and it actually works pretty well. Like you might have some remainder epic past lives after racial, but that first time bonus, do you just get so much benefit doubling up, and if you are the type of person that wants to just speed run, like you want to get past lives a little bit faster, or you don't want to, what I mean? Like you feel kind of overwhelmed. There's ways to double them, like iconic and heroic, and
Mm-hmm.
you could do racial and epic, or heroic and epic, and it's a good way to do it in general.
I mean, if you
I personally
go ahead.
1 epic life every 2 heroic, because you get your epic past life as well as whilst you're doing your epic levels. Say if you're doing stuff like the Lords of Dust, etc., you're just getting your tokens of the 12, which allows you to buy your Heart of Bloods, Heart of Woods, etc., to reincarnate, and that way you don't need to go on the DDR store, spend your turbine points on getting the stones from there, and you have yourself a little bank which can survive you a few lives if needed.
Yeah, there's definitely, if you think about it this way, there's between heroic and racial, that's 25 different feats. Now you can get them through each of them 3 times. There are between epic and iconic, there are only 18. So if you run up to 30 with your and get each iconic and each epic life, you will still have heroic and racial lives to do if you wanted them, right? You don't necessarily have to. And again, if this is like, oh my gosh, this is way too much work, how can I ever compete and play it? You don't need you don't need this, okay? I do not have any epic completionists. I do not have any completionists, and I still play at a high level and have success and have a lot of fun. You do not need all of these. Now, it makes certain things easier. Like I plan on getting doing more racial past lives because it makes the action point math a lot easier and a lot better for a couple of my characters. And I'm dreading this. This is not part of the game that I'm really particularly good at or really get a kick out of doing. So, but don't get overwhelmed. Again, we want to keep saying this because we're not telling you that you need to get all of this to be successful and have fun in this game. That is not the point of this. We're trying to give you an idea of how to approach going about this. So, I do want to mention, and this is kind of another aside, with Reaper XP, again, every time you do a heroic or a racial or an iconic, you reset your first time bonus. So we've talked about going from 1 to 30. And if you're doing that on, I kind of like just doing 1 or 2, maybe 3 skulls, depending on the party. But by the time when you get to 30, consider doing, again, 1, 2, 3, nothing crazy, but consider doing a couple of skulls on the legendary quests that you can get Reaper XP, first time Reaper XP, which is doubled at that point. Even at R1 for a level 30 plus quest, you're going to get, with an XP pot, you're going to probably get 2,000 or 3,000 Reaper XP just for completing those quests. And then you reincarnate and you start over. By the time you're done, if you're doing a lot of lives, you're going to have a lot of Reaper action points as well. So you can kind of dovetail that in here as well.
I actually wanted to add that point, but I feel like it was kind of like we're talking about past lives. But
It
yeah,
is.
I've done that, and I've came back to the game like right before last June. I'm up to like 84 Reaper points. I first one in my guild to get Reaper wings.
He
Not
passed
to
me
brag.
up. He passed me up doing that by doing that legendary stuff like you were saying when you're at cap.
And that the other thing I think about that is, and part of the reason why I bring this up is it breaks some of this up too. right? And this is mentioned in the chat too. Like, if you're someone like me, this is a lot of lies. And for someone who's running, like, I've got 14 characters that I occasionally, some of them I definitely play more than others. And I've pared that down, and I kind of focus on, really only focusing on 3 or 4 of them. And even then, maybe 1 or 2 at a time, right? But it breaks some of this up, right? So you can run 1 to 30 and then run some of these quests on Reaper. And again, you don't have to go crazy with the skulls to get a lot of benefit out of this. Run those and then go back to 1, right? And then run it again, or 15 if you're doing an iconic. And if you're knocking out a life every 2 weeks, which is a pretty darn good clip, if you're having fun, you'll be fine. So,
the main focus, I think the keywords is you don't have to, and if it's not becoming fun for you, you're doing something wrong, because this is entertainment. And for most of us, we're paying to play this game, like VIP subscription. So like, you don't want to sit there and be like, wow, I played this game for 7 years, paying like $30 every couple months, and this ain't fun. It was like, all that money's gone. You could have invested into some like Empire or something. But you keep it fresh, keep it fun, take your time. I mean, this game's going to be around. There's no party, like Voodu says, at the finish line. We're not hosting an intergalactic kegger. You just have fun. You know what I mean? It's your kitchen. Do what you want.
no one can see how many past lives you have.
Yeah,
just saying.
It's true.
And they don't give you if they gave you a really cool cosmetic like the rings with Reaper or something, that'd be a different story. But they don't do that. Thank you very much for not doing that. But yeah, this is supposed to be fun. There's a lot of power available. One of the things I want to mention too is we've talked about how your build and your gear and how well you play and your knowledge, like, that's going to be most of your power as you're playing. But there's this funny thing with gear, that they're always introducing new gear to the game, and then you have to go find the new gear, right? So but if you just waited and got the new gear, right, you didn't lose any power. The nice thing about past lives is that power, once you get it, that power is always there. So that the time investment to it always gives you that power increase in your character, which can be a consideration for some people, right? So, something to think about. All right. Anything else anyone wants to help to say to kind of finish putting a bow on this?
I'd like to jump back to racials and mention one more strategy. And that is, if you're not sure where to start, you can look at what's available in the different racial trees and see if there are sort of low-hanging fruit, tier 1 or tier 2 enhancements that you think you would be really interested, you really want to play with and have with that race. So, I knew, like, when I played Gnome, I wanted to have Wand and Scroll Mastery right away, and that would be a 4 action point enhancement. So I put my Gnome lives off until after I would be starting my lives with 4 racial action points so that I could get that Wand and Scroll Mastery right away. So look at those trees, look at the low-hanging fruit, see how many action points it's going to cost for you to start your life at level 1 with that, and then order your racials accordingly. And, of course, there are other considerations. Again, you might want to get your Constitution lives first, and then your casting stat or prime requisite next. But looking to see what's available in the trees is a great way to decide what order you're going to do your racials in.
As a general comment, some people use computers for lists, but I actually have a physical list that I make checks. And as you see, there's only 2 racial lives I'm focusing on, and then there's all the heroic lives I don't need iconics for. And it's really good. And I left enough space to tell me where my Reaper points were when I racialed or epics or whatever. So it's nice to have a list, not to make yourself feel like you're overwhelmed, but to kind of have, like, a little structure. You don't have to follow the list. It's just a list of things that you can do. Like, for instance, I don't have to racial. I have plenty of heroic past lives I can triple stack, or I can do an iconic. Depends. Just go with the flow. See what look at have a good list, look at it, and be like, that would be fun next life. Let's do that.
Making a list is a great idea. I do it too. And, because you might be the kind of a person that takes 2 to 3 months to do a life. And you might have thought in your head, this is what I want to do. And then 3 months later, when you finish a life, you might think, oh, I forgot what my plan was. So if you have a list, you can go right to that and go, oh, okay, I was going to do this next.
There's also, I always had to balance. I'm a big list person, and I've always had to balance with this. When I make the list, like, oh gosh, this feels so overwhelming, and I'll do like I'll do like a quarter of the list, and be like, oh, I'm done. Nope, I'm done. But at the same time, like, I'm also the kind of person who, I like checking things off of that list. So if there's a list there, like, check that. Like, there's a little, a little happy place moment there, right? When I get that checked off. So,
Patrick, I actually have a suggestion. This is actually my 6th list. After a while, I just redo it with the past lives I don't need anymore. So that is obviously this was a lot bigger back in the.
We've definitely done
yeah,
that. But
it helps shrink it,
When I picked up this item a few months, and it's been one of the greatest things to happen to me ever. It helps with my racials and heroics. It's called the Quiver of Alacrity, and it gives you 30% striding at level 1, which is crazy. I mean, that's 30% faster you're running, and you step into a quest and you have that slow run speed. If I remember correctly, for any other item, say if you craft something, it's 5%. Yet this item is a quiver, so if you're not like a ranged toon, it doesn't really matter what's in there, and it's at minimum level 1 once you upgrade it. However, it is bound to character, but
it's also hard to get.
Just speeds up.
You gotta run Abbott, which is not the easiest raid to run.
It's not, but I gotta back him up and say that if you're planning on doing a lot of lives, that if you can find a way to get yourself a Quiver of Alacrity, you will appreciate it. It is one of the best items in the game for a person that likes to reincarnate a lot.
Shout out to Jack Jibber's blade too.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah.
Let's not go too much into gear, because we could go down that rabbit hole for a long time.
That is, yeah, it's a big rabbit hole. I want to say, in case there's anybody watching who's new or never reincarnated, reincarnating that first time can seem really intimidating. I remember being there as a new player thinking, oh, I spent all this time getting this toon to cap. I don't want to lose that. And I was really nervous and intimidated by reincarnating. Once I did it, I had so much fun playing through my favorite toon again, and more powerful. And every time you do it, you get more powerful, and that made it more fun. So if you're nervous about reincarnating, you've never done it, I think it's a blast. Tons of fun.
To tag on to what Voodu said, I don't be in a rush either, though, because like we mentioned some gear options. You might want to cap your first toon and then say, hey, let's do some raids, let's get some gear, let's do some abbots, let's do this, let's do that, and then you have a bunch of play style experience. Like, you learn to play this game, you learn some freaking 3-letter sayings like, hey, let's do a TOT, and your first time playing, you might know what that is. You learn all this, right? You just stay capped for a while and play around, and then you're like, you know what, I'm ready to take that step. No one's rushing you. Epic, TR, and then racial, and and then take it from there. Baby steps,
Chill and don't stress.
Amen.
I do want to mention, and then we'll close the show here. If you need to figure out how many past lives you have, and you didn't take notes, what you can do is go to your character sheet, go to your feats page, and it will tell, there's a section for past lives, and then it kind of breaks them all down. And if you mouse over them, it'll tell you how many times you've acquired. And all of those feats stack up to 3 times. So don't try to, if you're looking for past lives, make sure you know how many you're doing. Don't. They're also all based on what you are right now. So your racial and heroic and iconic, they're all based on what you are right now, not what you're going into. So keep that in mind as well. But if you've already got 3 fighter lives, and you're trying to get all of them, don't do more fighter lives, because you're not going to get anything out of it.
Yeah.
So You'll be very disappointed. All right, there we go. So thanks for listening. You can join us next time. We'll have a new topic. We'll probably kind of come back to this periodically. So the next topic will not be past life prioritization, but we will be coming back to this topic and we'll be going more in depth of the different groupings as it is. So thank you to Voodu and Nimvind and BandVP for joining me today. You guys want to do some quick shout-outs on your channels and stuff before we head out?
You can check me out on YouTube channel Voodu Spice or Twitch channel Voodu Spice. And I'll also plug a video that Nimvind and I did about a month ago on this same topic of how to prioritize your past lives. So if you want to hear more on this topic, check it out on my YouTube channel, and maybe I can convince Patrick to put a link along with this video. I will.
Yep, to be honest, I was just about to mention your video as well. It's that I sat down and listened to it, and it mentions up other bits that, you know, help players, and it's even for new and veteran players, including from what for these upcoming shows, etc. You still learn new little bits and bobs which can help improve. So yeah, I mean, just shout out to that.
Yeah, I guess my shout out is that you can catch me on anything Voodoo Spice or Terralin between Twitch and YouTube. I'm pretty much attached to their hip.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming today, and thanks to all the folks who are listening. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOCast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. You can also find show notes, past shows, and more on our website, DDOCast.com, and you can find me on Twitter at DDOCast. That's kind of the best place to follow along on what's going on there. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.